Hey, Brain Retraining family. Today I wanted to give a general overview for what most brain retraining programs refer to as the STOP method, or this internal messaging we want to give to our nervous system to stop old negative feedback loops. So, we want to look at our brain as a network of neural pathways connecting different areas. That's kind of as simple as it is. Our brain controls our nervous system controls our body, a lot of our other functions. And the amygdala, which handles our emotions and our threat response, has pathways that lead to the other parts of the brain that trigger our feelings, like fear and anxiety and more symptom focused emotions. So, the more these pathways are used in a symptom focused way, the more we establish those kind of fixed, well trodden paths. And we want to work instead on stopping those paths from being used as much and establishing new neural pathways that help us make better choices and feel better in our body and our mind. So, the STOP method aims at interrupting negative neural pathways by literally telling our amygdala to stop overreacting. I read the book A Rational Approach to ME by Laz Evans, which is free online. This book has been out for a really long time as an ebook. That was one of my first introductions to brain retraining. What I loved the most about her book is when she discussed the STOP method, which is used in a lot of brain retraining programs, she talks about the nervous little man visualization. So you literally imagine like that there's a nervous little person at the control center within your amygdala, your nervous system. And it's like if you're in the watchtower, the fire tower, and you have a really nervous person up there, they're going to constantly be like hitting the alarm button and like turning up the volume and constantly scanning, looking for danger. And you kind of imagine like another person coming on shift and saying to them like, wow, like this job doesn't have to be so hard. There aren't any threats right now. And maybe there were threats before and you probably did a great job and you saved us a few times, amygdala, by, doing a great job and helping us in that crisis. But there is no crisis now. We can calm down, right? Like if you're in a fire tower and there's no smoke on the horizon and we just had rain and there's no smoke for a long time and there's no reason to think there's a fire, why are you pacing back and forth, amygdala, and looking for a threat when there isn't one? So I really like to keep that nervous man or woman visualization in my head. And when I'm talking to my amygdala, I visualize that anxious person and I'm just talking them down, I'm calming them down, but I'm also thanking them for their service and trying to keep me safe. When we recognize that our amygdala has created the strong pathways responsible for our symptoms, and that those pathways are reinforced by constant worry and negative emotions, we start to realize that we have to find a way to signal our amygdala to stop and to change directions. So instead of walking down, we're in the woods and we see the road less traveled and the road that's very well traveled. That road that's very well traveled, if we have chronic pain and illness, it's not serving us. We've gone down that path before and it never leads anywhere good. It is not helping us. Just because it looks familiar doesn't mean we need to go down it. I do this a lot in my work with my trauma clients, that trauma and chaos start to feel comfortable when that's all you've known for a long time. Just because that road looks familiar doesn't mean we want to go down it again. We might see a different road, a different path that's kind of new and grown in, and we want to work on establishing that new pathway for ourselves because we know that there's something beautiful at the end. It is leading us to a beautiful new place. Maybe we can envision where that path leads. Maybe it's a beautiful waterfall, a peaceful meadow, a place that we can enjoy our life, a beautiful hike, something that feels rewarding yet maybe challenging. So using the simple command stop to first interrupt the amygdala's response to these pathways, it can be short and direct because the amygdala processes very simple commands very quickly. We don't want to be too convoluted. And then taking some immediate action. So as soon as we say stop, immediately engage in a distraction, a positive affirmation, a different behavior, so that we can show the amygdala that we are redirecting it from this panicked state. A lot of people use something like snapping their fingers or clapping their hands and then saying, like stop. We are not doing this. And then you immediately shift and reminding yourself that you're safe. So, a practical application of this is we want to be aware of what triggers our symptoms so that we know what to look out for. Maybe these are different thoughts, different people, feelings, sensations, sensory inputs. And we also want to recognize like any daydreams or thoughts that kind of come up. We want to label them as just a thought, not something that has to take over, and that we can stop this. Thoughts are kind of like waves on the shore from a yoga meditation perspective. They can come and they can go. We want to stay stable. We don't want to let those thoughts overwhelm us. We can let them go back into the water. And as soon as we notice the negativity, we want to replace that with something positive. So imagining a more positive scenario, something peaceful. And if you feel a negative emotion, such as self-doubt or worthlessness, again, we can say stop and then replace it with a positive affirmation of, my life has meaning and purpose. I am a strong person. And when we're using the distraction, again, this has to be something that's positive. So, for example, you might hear, this is just something that we can use for anyone with any sort of anxiety. You hear a loud crash in your house and that triggers a startle response. Your amygdala is instantly going to send signals of fear and worst case scenario. You're going to feel that adrenaline rush. If you just say stop, interrupt that pathway, stop, and then redirect, the chances are that is just something that fell off the counter, the cat ran into the wall, I am totally safe. And then you engage in an activity that distracts you from the initial response. Maybe you pick your book back up and keep reading, or you walk outside and sit in your yard. Anything that shifts you quickly away from the startle threat response. We have to keep consistent with this. So we have to use the stop command quickly every single time the negative thought or emotion comes up. And then we want to have confidence with, and compassion that we are understanding that the amygdala responds this way to keep us safe, but that it's not serving us. That's where the next important step comes in, which is gratitude, saying thank you. This is really important. It's a really important part of the stop method. So as you're telling the amygdala to stop and then you transition to a different behavior, you want to say thank you to the amygdala. You want to say thank you for keeping me safe, but right now there is no threat. We're going to calm down. We're going to do something different. Saying thank you signals to your amygdala that the command is over and the conversation's over. So this provides mental closure and it kind of stops that negative feedback loop and it reinforces that we're shifting in a positive direction. And it's kind of like with anything, if, the amygdala kind of acts like a toddler having, big reactions, big emotions. We're teaching manners in a way. Like we are saying, stop, but thank you for telling me, but it's not a big deal, right? And then that's also giving positive reinforcement. We're acknowledging that the amygdala does keep us safe, but we're also giving it a reward when it cooperates with us in staying calm and not overreacting. So this reinforces our desired new behaviors and new neural pathways. So how are we going to use this? So when we notice a trigger coming up, we're going to say to the amygdala, stop. Maybe we do some anchoring cue, reminding that stop. And we're going to use the positive affirmation, like, I feel strong today. I feel good. There's nothing to worry about. We're going to say thank you for letting me know something triggered me, but I don't have to go down that road. And then we're going to do something different that reinforces our positive healing choices. And we want to have confidence with this. We are expecting that our instruction is going to be followed. We're not in fear of our amygdala hijacking our brain and our body. And then when we immediately engage in an activity that shifts your focus away from your symptoms, like reading a book, taking a walk, talking to a friend, this is redirecting and reinforcing new neural pathways away from threat response. An example, if I feel a surge of anxiety, I might say, stop, I am in control, thank you. And then I might immediately start doing something else, like doing a craft that requires me to use my hands and my mind to connect, or looking out the window and looking for 5 things that I can see and hear that relax me, like the birds and the flowers. You can also use this technique for emotions. If you are feeling a lack of confidence, you might say, stop that. I know that I am strong and confident. I am strong, I am strong, I am strong, but thank you for protecting me. So when we incorporate that thank you, we are giving an end to our instruction and boosting our confidence to do this going forward. And again, with that nervous little man or woman, we don't want our amygdala to become so anxious that it always takes that lever from normal to like red alert all the time. So sometimes I know for myself, I like to envision that persona. It makes it easier than feeling like I'm talking to a part of my brain. So I imagine that I'm talking to this nervous little person in my brain and I'm saying like, it's stop, relax, it's okay, everything's fine. I mean, I feel like I'm talking to when my daughter was younger and should have these tantrums. Like you almost are talking to that little kid mentality. I want to visualize that little person listening, taking those breaths and calming down, and they're kind of moving that high alert beacon back to normal. And then you're encouraging them to just sit down and relax and kick their feet up. So if I feel a symptom trigger and I see that little person moving that lever back up to like, oh, warning, warning, I want to say, no, we're not doing that. Stop. Put that lever back down. We are good. This is consistency. It might seem silly, but these visualizations really do help us to see our symptoms as separate from ourselves. These are something that are controllable and that are outside of our own identity. It's just behaviors that have developed over time in reaction to stress and threat. We don't want to rush ourselves, but we want to give ourselves time to get used to these new visualizations. Something else could be we visualize a thermometer. I used to do this all the time with my home-based kiddos when I was a therapist with children and families, and we would draw a thermometer and we would say, what does it feel when you're at a 0 or a 1? When you're having an anger issue or a meltdown or an anxiety issue, what does it look like at 10? And how do we notice the in-between? So many people with chronic illness, chronic pain, anxiety, anger, feel like they go from 0 to 10. If I can make a visual thermometer and I can write down, like, how do I know when I'm at a 1? How do I know when I'm at a 5? What does 10 look like? Then I start to fill in all the numbers in between. If I notice, if I become aware of what that actually looks like, I'm able to notice more when I'm at that 1 or 2 or 3, and I can say to myself, stop, before it gets to a 10. I start to have more awareness and therefore more control over my reactivity to things. So if you visualize that thermometer, maybe you have it drawn in a journal, if you start to feel symptoms or triggers worsening, you imagine that thermometer level slightly rising, and you can say, stop the rise. You can tell it, tell your symptoms, I'm okay. Stop, thank you, let's bring it back down. And as we visualize coming back to normal, we affirm that our symptoms are not going to take over today. We are going to redirect to something positive that helps us feel better. So it's really important to work on moving away from all of the negative loops that we've been stuck in if we've been sick for a long time or in pain for a long time, and shift to a positive visualization, a positive focus, and avoid dwelling or ruminating on worst case scenarios. Again, it's normal that we did this when we were stuck in an illness loop, but when we're working towards healing, we're shifting away from that being our norm. So I hope this was helpful today. I want to make sure too that part of our homework today is creating a list of positive actions that we can do when we are redirecting ourselves. So something like even a gentle hug, massaging our hands, doing a craft, having something like a magazine that's really soothing to us out that we can flip through, anything that shifts our attention away. If we could go out and do some yoga or go for a walk or call a friend or do a journaling exercise, that would be amazing. Do a full meditation, do a prayer. But sometimes it has to be very simple. Like, I'm just going to massage my hands and remind myself that I am worthy of love and compassion today. It can be as simple as that. Just anything to shift away from worry to something nurturing and changing our energy. So when we shift to positive and nurturing energy, we think about comforting a crying child. Sometimes if our kiddos get hurt and they're crying, they really just want that comfort. The injury isn't really as bad. It's the shock of feeling like, oh my gosh, I got really hurt. And half the time, all they need is that hug and kiss, and it's okay. Shh, calm down, you're fine. We know that usually this problem isn't as serious as our children believe it is, And we have this wounded inner child in us when we've dealt with chronic pain and illness. And a lot of the time, we are so stuck in the negative pathways. We think it's a huge problem, but we really just need empathy and compassion and love and someone to say, it's okay. Let's take a breath and assess the situation. It's probably not as bad as we think. And once we give ourselves that nurturing and that compassion and that love, we feel better. I hope this was helpful today. I know we covered a lot of material. One other thing I wanted to touch on is just how we approach our day. So, throughout our day, I want us to focus on how we sit, how we present ourselves, our posture. And I know posture has just been such an overlooked somatic tool. Everyone, I think, nowadays is talking about like all of these in-depth somatic programs and somatic yoga, and I love a good somatic yoga class. I think somatics is great. You don't have to pay for some high-priced program to learn somatics. As simple as putting your shoulders back and down, expanding through your chest so you can take a deep breath, feeling that invisible gold thread from the crown of your head, lifting you up, just magically improving your posture, aligning your energy centers, helping your spine to be in good alignment. This magically, not magically, there's science behind it, this shifts our nervous system state. When we have good posture, it signals to our body that we are confident, we are strong. Oh, we take deeper breaths, we feel more energized. Our nervous system, our vagus nerve that innervates the whole way down through our neck and into our belly, everything is connected back to posture. And so even if that's just one simple thing we do, when we notice and shift ourselves and we say stop, do we notice our postures hunched or nervous or our shoulders are tight when we notice these behaviors coming in? Then when we say stop, thank you, I'm doing something different, we just focus on the posture shifting. I notice an immediate change when I shift my posture. My breath feels deeper. I feel more relaxed. I feel more confident and strong. If you have one takeaway from today, it's to shift your posture, use that internal dialogue, and notice a shift in your mental, emotional, and physical state. I hope this helped today. I hope you guys all have an amazing week full of healing and love, and I'll talk to you all soon.